Welcome back to the deep dive. So today we're tackling a paradox that I think anyone in finance, banking, or tech is going to be really familiar with.
Oh, absolutely. It's a huge one.
It is. You have these major financial institutions pouring, just massive amounts of capital.
We're talking tens, sometimes hundreds of millions of dollars.
Exactly, into these, state-of-the-art digital apps.
Yeah.
But then they just don't create that lasting competitive advantage.
Right. The results are fine, just adequate. And that's not what you want for that kind of investment. It's what our sources are calling the silent crisis in digital finance.
A silent crisis. I like that.
Yeah, because on paper, executives have done everything right. They've modernized the systems, built the app, launched the features.
But the outcomes are still painful.
So painful. You see huge drop-off rates during onboarding. Support centers are just swamped with calls about things that should be easy. And, adoption just hits a wall because the product isn't sticky.
And the immediate reaction is to blame the tech, right?
Yeah.
But the issue is, well, it's deeper.
It's much deeper.
Okay, so let's unpack that, because it feels like the whole ground has shifted under the industry. It's no longer about competing on, say, products or interest rates.
Not at all.
The real competition is about how those products feel.
Exactly. Our sources are so clear on this. Your customer isn't comparing your bank app to the bank across the street anymore.
No, they're comparing it to Netflix, to Uber, to
Yeah.
every brilliantly simple, just frictionless experience they have every single day.
Precisely. And that's the disconnect. Most financial products, as one paper put it, are built as transactional calculation systems, not as human experiences.
That's such a great phrase.
It really is. They focus on the function, the chore of moving money, but they completely ignore the emotional side of it. The stress, the hope, the ambition.
All of that is just left at the door.
It is. So the mission then becomes closing that emotional gap. We have to see every digital touch point as a chance to build a real, empowering, and, human relationship.
That is a massive shift in thinking. So our goal in this deep dive is to distill this down into 10 core experience-tested recommendations, the things that turn a regular app into what the research calls a trusted companion.
And that's the perfect place to start, building that trust. How do you make the user feel guided, not just processed?
Right. The first big principle we pulled out is this idea that you have to coach users, not command them. And that brings up a term I love. Guided suffering. What does that actually look like?
Guided suffering is that experience we've all had. You open a new app or you try to do something complicated like open an investment account.
And you're immediately hit with a wall of pop-ups.
A wall of them. 6 instruction modals, 12 tooltips, all these warnings, and a flow that's so rigid you can't do anything but what it tells you. It just creates this instant cognitive stress.
And that's before you've even done anything. It feels like you're being scolded.
Yes, and of course you bail. So the design solution here, and the sources really hammer this home, is something called progressive disclosure.
So instead of that info dump,
It's the art of guided discovery. You only reveal information when it's immediately relevant to what the user is doing right at that moment. It's like gentle teaching, not a mandatory lecture.
why is that so critical specifically in finance?
Well, because money is already stressful, right?
Hey.
Loans, investments, they're high stakes. If the product teaches you gently, it makes you feel smarter and more in control. It builds confidence.
Instead of making you feel inadequate.
Exactly. The Guarantee BBVA mobile banking redesign is a perfect case study for this. They realized they couldn't treat a total beginner the same way they treat a professional trader.
Okay, so how did they actually do that? What was the mechanism for the coaching?
They reframed the whole thing as a personal coaching journey. The interface literally changes based on your confidence level. A beginner might see a really simple flow with clear definitions tucked away in help buttons.
While an expert sees.
An expert sees a dense power user interface that's all about speed and data. They transform complexity into a confidence-building experience. That's what makes an app feel like a partner.
That makes so much sense. And that idea of an adaptive partner leads right into the second principle. Personalization has to be a core value driver.
Yeah.
And not just, putting my name in the header.
Oh, definitely not. That's just superficial. Real personalization means the app acts like a mentor. It anticipates your needs.
So it's predicting my next best action.
Yes, and adapting flows based on your past behavior, surfacing the right tools at the right moment. It's about guiding your financial literacy contextually.
Not just a link to some blog on the side.
No. If you're nearing your credit card limit, the app shouldn't just show you a number. It should, right then and there, offer a link to a repayment plan or a budgeting tool.
Do we have a good example of that?
The My Tap Money super app from Mauritius Telecom is a great one. They went way beyond just banking.
How so?
They built a truly adaptive ecosystem. It understood your lifestyle, your habits, not just financial, but also telecom use, utility payments, everything. It could then preemptively suggest a better phone plan or warn you about a recurring subscription. It's integrating financial management with life management.
That's personalization as actual strategic guidance.
Exactly.
And all this guidance and anticipation, it really builds on this idea of trust. Which brings us to the emotional bedrock of all of this. Human trust versus corporate language.
The sources are just unanimous on this point. In finance, trust is the user experience.
One frustrating moment can ruin everything.
Everything. A confusing error message, a flow that goes nowhere, it can cause an immediate loss of what they call emotional safety. And people abandon it.
That cold robotic language basically signals your feelings don't matter, just give us the data.
And when you lose that safety, you see retention drop and support calls spike because people just don't trust the app to help them anymore. The products that win are the ones that talk human to human.
Simple, empathetic language.
And celebrating the small wins. You save some money, you paid off a loan. A little acknowledgement makes the product feel like a companion through the good and the bad. It creates stickiness.
Okay, moving into our second segment, let's look at the more strategic design decisions, the ones that turn an app into a growth engine. Number 4 is about infusing the product with unmistakable brand charisma.
Yeah, and there's a simple test for this. If you take your logo off the screen, does your app look like every other financial app out there?
And if the answer is yes,
You've got a problem. You have zero differentiation, no emotional loyalty. Brand isn't just decoration. It's recognition. It's emotion.
so how do you create a visual and verbal world that users can actually feel?
The brand has to tell the story of who the customer wants to become. Emirates NBD's work with LiveX is a fantastic example.
Right, LiveX wasn't just another digital bank.
No, it was a cultural identifier. They built a whole brand ecosystem that blended finance with local culture, fashion, music, social events, all to resonate with young, creative people in Dubai.
So the app wasn't just holding their money.
It was signaling belonging, aspiration. And that kind of brand identity is something a competitor just can't copy by adding a new feature.
That's a really powerful point, and it flows right into Principle 5, designing for user growth. I feel like so many apps get my info and then just abandon me.
That's the feeling of being treated like a short-term tool, not a long-term companion.
Yeah.
Your financial life changes, right? You start small, you get a loan, maybe you start a family, you invest. The product has to evolve with you
If it doesn't help you advance, it becomes obsolete.
very quickly. So you have to design these adaptive pathways that are constantly sort of raising the bar for the user.
How do you do that in practice?
Well, think about a good fitness app. It doesn't let you get comfortable. It suggests you run a little faster, lift a little heavier.
Investment apps should do the same.
Exactly. The Gcash Investments experience did this really well. They designed it so a basic saver is gently nudged toward becoming an investor. A novice trader gets insights to become more confident. It's about making growth feel motivating.
Speaking of seamless, we have to
What?
talk about Principle 6, speed as a competitive weapon. Now, I hear this a lot, but is speed really retention insurance?
Oh, it is, 100%. The data is overwhelming. Speed isn't a nice to have, it's a core promise of reliability. A slow product actively kills trust.
It feels broken.
It feels unprofessional. One source said a 3-second delay can cost you half your traffic.
Wow. That's staggering. So the solution is to treat speed like a design goal, not just a tech problem.
Yes, you set performance budgets, you cut steps out of common flows like checking a balance, you preload data. United Air Bank did this. They introduced biometric login and optimized their flows.
And the result?
Basic tasks became 27 times faster, and they saw an immediate, measurable drop in customer churn. Speed feels premium. Speed is credibility.
That's a great way to put it. Okay, last one in this segment, number 7, transforming listening into a strategic operating system. We have to talk about feedback.
Right. Analytics are great. They tell you what people do. They clicked here. They dropped off there.
But not why.
Exactly. Feedback reveals the why. Was the button confusing? Was the error message scary? The best products are built by combining both of those data streams.
So how do you build a continuous listening loop without just getting buried in noise?
You treat every piece of feedback as structured data that feeds right back into the next design sprint. You use in-app feedback forms at friction points. You use trigger-based surveys after a task. You do quick user interviews with every sprint.
The key being that the user feels like they're co-creating the product with you.
Yes, they have to feel heard, that their problems are being solved in real time.
All right, we are down to our final 3 principles, and these are really focused on the emotional payoff and how you measure success. Number 8 is about psychology, micro-interactions, and dopamine habits.
This is so important. Financial behavior is emotional. When you do something good like save money or pay off debt, your brain gives you a little hit of dopamine. Design can and should reinforce that positive feeling.
So we're talking about things like little animations, a subtle vibration, a congratulations message.
Exactly. And these aren't just decoration, they're seasoning. They reinforce good behavior and turn the dry act of moving numbers into an emotional reward. That's what builds habits and stickiness.
Okay, I have to challenge this a bit. We've been talking about building trust. How do you make sure you're using delight to encourage responsible habits and not just creating an addictive, gamified loop that could lead to, say, reckless trading?
That's a fantastic question, and it's the critical line to walk. Delight must be used to celebrate achievement, hitting a savings goal, making a payment, completing a plan, not just activity.
I see.
It's about shaping healthy habits for the long term. Look at Live Light, the children's banking product from Emirates NBD. They used micro-interactions to make money management feel encouraging for kids. It's about establishing good habits for the next generation. That's what we mean by ethical dopamine banking. It's turning fear into confidence.
That clarifies it perfectly, and it leads right into Principle 9, which is about execution, turning that vision into a clickable strategic engine.
Right. A big vision statement about being customer-centric is, it's just a brochure if you don't translate it into action.
It has to become a real roadmap.
It has to become user journeys, flows, pixels on a screen. Every single design choice, every button, every word has to be linked to 3 things.
A business objective, a brand promise, and a user problem.
Yes. The case of BKT in Albania is a good example. They had this powerful vision for transformation, but they needed a concrete, experience-driven strategy to make it real for millions of customers. The second you can prove that your design drives revenue by improving a loan application or cutting support costs, the product stops being a cost center and becomes a profit engine.
And that brings us to the final principle, number 10, which is all about measurement. Stop measuring internal vanity metrics and start measuring customer outcomes.
This is a big one. Internal KPIs, like daily active users, are useful, but they don't tell the whole story.
They tell you people are opening the app, but not if you're getting any value from it.
Exactly. A feature could be used a lot, but if it's frustrating or leads to a dead end, it's actually just hidden tech debt.
So what should we be measuring instead of just DAUs?
You focus on the user's success. Are their savings going up? Are they making better choices? You measure the completion rate for complex tasks. You measure stress reduction in risky moments like applying for a loan. You measure confidence. When you optimize for people's lives, people will optimize for your product.
So this all comes together under 2 big concepts from the source material, which they call dopamine banking and digital experience branding.
That's the synthesis of it all, really. Dopamine banking is what we just discussed, using those micro moments of delight to turn negative emotions like fear and stress into clarity and confidence.
And digital experience branding.
That's the part that ensures the product always expresses the brand's soul, its promise, its integrity, it's the reason it feels different. Most products deliver functionality, but they don't deliver identity or meaning. And that cohesive emotional identity is the true differentiator.
So to wrap this all up, what's the big takeaway for a user or an executive listening to this? It seems like the core principle is that exceptional financial products aren't built feature by feature.
No, they are cultivated feeling by feeling.
It's a living system, shaped by this constant empathy loop. Listen, understand, design, deliver, learn, and then do it all over again.
And every time you go through that loop, you deepen the emotional bond, that connection, that focus on the human experience. It's not a nice to have anymore. It is the new competitive moat in finance. In this market, meaning wins.
That is a powerful distinction. We've really established that so many financial apps deliver the function, but they fail on that identity, that meaning, They can feel cold and transactional. So if your current app makes you feel that way, here's a final provocative thought for you to mull over. What deeper unmet emotional needs for security, for belonging, for empowerment are you implicitly being pushed to seek satisfaction for elsewhere? All because your primary financial companion feels so inadequate. Food for thought until our next deep dive.